So you're probably waking up to the extraordinary news that President Joe Biden has declared that he will not be running in the 2024 presidential election anymore. This comes after weeks of speculation that he would actually be dropping out of the race. He will not be facing former President Donald Trump in the 2024 November elections. This is a huge deal for American politics, for the world, and we're just going to give you a very, very quick sense of this morning, and through the day we will have coverage for you on this decision. But let me just walk you through what happened earlier in the day, in the night in India at least, and of course earlier in the day on the 21st of July, President Biden comes out with a statement where he talks about how he will no longer be running in the presidential election. He talks about his record, where he says that we have brought, where he talks about how much his administration has achieved. He's talked about his support for Ukraine, for expanding healthcare, for expanding veterans' rights, and so on and so forth, building infrastructure in America. But then he says in that written statement that came out just yesterday, where he talks about how he has been honored to be president, but he will not be running for the presidency again in 2024, and he will focus on being president for the remainder of his term, which is until the 20th of January 2025. So that was Biden's statement. And the second significant thing he did was to endorse Kamala Harris, his vice president, who's been the vice president since 2021, for the presidency. Now, this is, of course, a massive deal. As you know, for the last couple of weeks and months, really, there has been the speculation that Biden will be called upon to step aside. Really, the speculation began after his performance in the first presidential debate with former President Donald Trump just some time ago, and in that he seemed to lose his train of thought several times. He seemed increasingly weak, increasingly fail, at least in contrast to Trump as well. And over the weeks after that, we have seen a number of gaffes from Biden that suggest that the president is not as alert as he needs to be to run for president again. There was that notable moment where he called President Zelensky President Putin at the NATO summit, and then he, of course, referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. So it was, just this tidal swell of calls then from the Democratic Party, from senior leaders in the Democratic Party, such as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is a very prominent senator and, of course, a major Democratic Party leader. He met with Joe Biden and, at least according to media reports, asked him to step down. Nancy Pelosi, also, who is the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, really one of the most powerful politicians in America, came out, told Joe Biden that he needed to step down, in private at least. But in public, you had several senators, several congressmen actually come out and say that President Biden needed to step down, that after his presidential debate performance and his numerous gaffes, vast majorities of the American public believed that Biden was too old to be president, and these politicians were worried that having Biden on the ticket running for re-election would mean that they would suffer in their races for the lower house, which is the House of Representatives in America, as well as the upper house, which is the Senate. So, looking at the polling evidence that Biden was facing, that he has increasingly fallen behind Trump in recent weeks, given the fact that the American public thinks that he is too old to run for the presidency, and given that senior leaders of the Democratic Party have called on him to leave, Biden has taken this decision to drop out. We're told that he was presented with sort of incontrovertible polling evidence showing that, in fact, he would not win against Donald Trump if he decides to continue in this race, and showing that Vice President Kamala Harris actually has a better chance of beating Trump in the upcoming election. Of course, another factor that I should probably mention to you in Biden's decision is that fundraising has been a huge concern for the Democratic Party. Remember that the American elections are among the most expensive in the world. You need hundreds of millions of dollars to win a US presidential election, and the Trump team has been able to outraise the Biden campaign when it comes to money, and the Democratic Party has increasingly found it very difficult to raise funds from big donors, because those donors are not convinced that Biden can win. They're not enthused by Biden as a candidate, and so without the money and the political backing to win, and increasingly people thinking that he's too old, Biden has taken this decision to step down. Kamala Harris then is the politician in the spotlight, in focus. Who is Kamala Harris? We'll just give you a very brief sense. She is, of course, Vice President of the United States, has been Joe Biden's key lieutenant in global roles over the last couple of years. She has been, before this at least, Senator for California, which is an important position. Remember, there are 100 senatorial positions in America. Each state gets 2, and California is the largest state. So, of course, she held a very important and powerful position. Before that, she was Attorney General, which is the chief law officer of the state of California. And before that, she was known as a tough prosecutor. She was in the legal profession, and that is how she rose to prominence. Of course, after becoming vice president, she has had not always the easiest run. Lots of people, her polling ratings dived for a long time. She was not seen as very competent in administration, and she was handed charge of a number of key initiatives for the Biden administration. But the sense always was that she never really lived up to the expectations placed on her. But over the last year, she has been seen as someone who's had a resurgent public presence, especially after abortion has returned as one of the top 3 issues, really, of the election campaign, especially after a key Supreme Court ruling that restricted abortion rights for women in the United States. She has really stepped out on this particular issue. She's given very strong speeches and has been seen as someone who has revitalized her political brand. So with her already being on the ticket, already being vice president, having lots of name recognition, and really being prepared to run for the presidency again, we have the situation now where Kamala Harris is likely to be, is in pole position at least to be the next Democratic nominee. She put out a tweet saying that she was honored to have this opportunity, that she would be looking to earn the nomination of the Democratic Party. Now, what happens moving forward for the Democratic Party is that we know that their convention is set to happen just in a very little while, just in a couple of weeks. At this Democratic National Convention, the new nominee of the Democratic Party will be picked. And of course, you will have, at this point in time, we are not certain that Kamala Harris will, of course, have an uncontested ride, because Joe Manchin, who is, of course, a senator from Virginia, he's an independent, used to be a Democrat, has already announced that he's considering running. So what we're seeing is that it may not be an extremely smooth run for Kamala Harris. She will have to win the support of the party, of the delegates of the party who had earlier selected Joe Biden. Remember that the Democratic primary, we have to remind you again that in America, there is a primary system where parties hold an internal election to select their nominee. President Trump won his party's primary, and President Biden won his party's primary. So now all the delegates have actually already voted, all the voters have already voted, and now those delegates which were pledged to President Joe Biden will have to make a decision about who then they want to pick to be the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States. And of course, Kamala Harris, of course, in pole position, but she will probably not be uncontested. You have, of course, Joe Manchin, like as I mentioned, the senator from Virginia, I believe. If I'm sorry, my apologies. I will come back to you on that. But Joe Manchin, of course, a very a prominent senator who has been an independent for the last couple of years, was a Democrat before, has already announced that he will choose to run West Virginia, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly now that I think about it. So probably not going to be contested, but the Democrats, for them, the important thing will be to make sure that they are able to do this in the most orderly fashion possible. Remember that the Trump campaign has been running an organized machine. They have had the wind at their backs ever since the debate. Now, after the attempted shooting of the president, former President Donald Trump, as well as the Republican National Convention, which happened in Milwaukee just a week ago, that of course has also put the wind in the sails of the Republican Party. So they're in pole position, and the Democrats will have to make sure that they can carry off the nomination of whoever the Democratic nominee will be in a smooth, uncontested, or at least in a smooth fashion, so that even if there is contestation, there is the element of stability, and the Democratic Party seems like it has its act together. But now, what are the reactions been to Biden's decision, and Harris, of course, also saying that she will run for the presidency? So what you have is, at the domestic level, you have former President Donald Trump really coming out and attacking Joe Biden, calling him again as always Crooked Joe, talking about how he's quit the race, and really in some ways a vindictive statement attacking the President Joe Biden. You had Trump's running mate JD Vance also come out and saying that, look, if Joe Biden doesn't feel fit to run for the presidency, he should not be president in the first place. And that was JD Vance's statement. He also called Joe Biden the worst president of his lifetime. So there have already been political attacks from the Republican Party. Of course, these two gentlemen, Trump and Vance, have also, and the Republican Party have also already begun attacks on Kamala Harris and her record, because they know that she will be the person they have to face in the likely face in the election moving forward. So that is on the domestic side from the Republican Party. On the domestic side from the Democratic Party, you have lots of people coming out praising Biden, calling him a patriot, saying that this is not an easy decision for him to have made, but he has made it for his country. He's made it for his party. Of course, Barack Obama praising Joe Biden's record on this matter, and praising his public service record, and praising this decision that he's made. And lots of people on the on the liberal side of American politics have come out and praised Joe Biden, and many of them, including the progressive politician Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have come out and have backed Kamala Harris to be the next nominee of the Democratic Party. So you already have key figures in the party coalescing around figures like Kamala Harris and praising Joe Biden for his contribution in stepping down. The global reaction, of course, you've had people ranging from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the top Israeli politician Yoav Gallant really come out and sort of thank President Biden for his contribution and for his service. President Zelensky, of course, also of Ukraine, also reaching out and saying that Biden was tough and was a strong leader who supported Ukraine, especially after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So absolutely just an interesting day for US politics, for global politics, with world leaders weighing in on this decision of Joe Biden to step down. We now have, of course, a full day of coverage in front of us. We'll have politicians from the United States, commentators from America, Indian diplomats to explain to you a bunch of things throughout the day, which is what does this decision mean for American politics? What does it mean for India? What does it mean for the world? We will keep you absolutely covered with the latest news from this latest jolt in the US presidential campaign. Joe Biden again choosing to step aside and not run for the presidency again in 2024. Thank you so much for watching India Today Global. We keep you updated with all the rest.